to conservative activists. So I'm going to throw it open for your questions.
Governor, do you have any thoughts about Donald Trump's criticism last night of Megyn Kelly and what went down during the debate?
Megyn Kelly is a person I worked with for 6.5 years at Fox News. My relationship with her is one that tells me she is the quintessential consummate professional. Even though I work with her, I'll tell you she is one of the most beloved people in the building. She is also one of those people you don't tangle with. She is a person who is as smart as anybody I've ever known, but is also as professional as anyone I've ever known. When I left Fox and worked toward and then became a candidate, she gave me no quarter when I would be on her show and she would interview me. Because she's a tough, heads-on journalist. And one of the things I've respected about her is that if there's something that she wants to press toward, doesn't matter who you are, she's going to try to get to the story. And I respect her for that. And she has pressed me hard on many things. That's fine. That's what she's supposed to do. And it's why she's as successful as she is. She deserves it. She's earned it. So rather than say something about the criticism, I'll tell you that there's not a more professional, a more savvy, and more brilliant person in television today than Megyn Kelly.
Governor, should Mr. Trump apologize to Megyn Kelly?
I'll have to leave that up to him.
But isn't this whole issue taking the Republican Party exactly where it doesn't want to go? This is about the so-called war on women. That was the question that started the whole exchange during the debate. And now
the Republican Party is not engaged in a war on women. The Republican Party is not engaged in saying things about Megyn Kelly. One individual is. I'm telling you what I say about a woman, and I think she's one of the most remarkable people I know. I'm a Republican. I've been one since a teenager. I've been one longer. I think what I say about Megyn Kelly probably has more gravity than what anyone else says about Megyn Kelly. Not only have I known her and worked with her, but I've been a Republican long enough to understand something about what it means to be a Republican. So I'll stand by that.
The comments that the comments that Megyn Kelly listed that Mr. Trump had made about women, he joked about Rosie O'Donnell. Do you think those comments that Mr. Trump made about women are appropriate?
I certainly wouldn't say that.
Do you think it is a case where Donald Trump may be too thin-skinned to run for president?
You know, I don't know what his skin looks like. I've never been that close, so I just don't know.
Governor,
You got another non-Donald Trump question?
Governor, I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Eric Erickson disinvited Donald Trump.
Yes.
It is a Donald Trump question, but now we're all upset.
Seems like it to me.
Hang on. We're all upset about what he said about Megyn Kelly,
Yeah.
but he's made comments about other people. Are we not worried about what he's saying about men and other people as well? He is saying this.
Well, that was not a Donald Trump question.
Hold on. Is he doing a disservice to the Republican nominees or the Republican contenders by being up there doing this and creating all this turmoil?
Look, he struck a nerve with people, and you know, I could only stand back and understand that there are a lot of people in this country who are very angry. I don't know that I have anything other than more to say about it. I really don't.
Governor, I'm going to change the subject really quick.
Okay.
Now that the Supreme Court has legalized same-sex marriage, where do you think the next legal battle for where do you think the next legal battle for religious freedom is?
It's whether or not we're going to protect the religious liberty of individuals, churches, adoption agencies, universities, and hospitals to continue to practice their faith unrestricted to the government. And it is a very serious issue, and it is one that is far from over. I think people are utterly naive when they say things like, well, the Supreme Court's rule, that settles it. Hardly. The Supreme Court ruled in 1973 on Roe v. Wade and unrestricted abortion rights. Did that settle it? Have we quit talking about it? Hardly.
Do you think that hospitals should have the choice whether or not to serve same-sex couples?
I think every person of faith ought to be able to practice his or her faith without restrictions from the government. The government has no constitutional authority to dictate the confines of a person's faith. Simple as that. First Amendment's explicitly clear on that. There's no ambiguity. You don't have to reach out into the thin air and come up with words like spirituality or intimacy and come up with a protection for religious liberty. It is in black and white in the First Amendment.
Governor, Ted Cruz said last week that he sees the so-called SEC primary as a firewall. Do you think it's correct that a candidate, especially someone like yourself, could fare okay in earlier states and see the Southern primary really continuing to launch a campaign?
Our strategy is we feel like we've got to do well in Iowa, South Carolina, and the SEC primary. And I think there's going to be a lot of winnowing out at some point through that process, because those are the early states. I've been through this process before. One thing I learned is that it doesn't matter how well people think you're going to do in the Final Four. You don't get to the Final Four, like the NCAA, if you don't win the early ball games. And you don't get to be the nominee if you don't win the early contest. And if you think you do, ask President Giuliani how his 8 years as president went. He was the overwhelming favorite to win in 2008. We were all, just basically ignored because Giuliani was taking up all the oxygen in the room, and he was leading. He raised $60 million. But he didn't win any of the early primary states, and by the time everything went to Florida, which was at that time the fourth state, he was no longer a factor.
So you're saying that any candidate who doesn't perform well in those really early states is fooling himself if he thinks that the Southern primary can be the salvation for the candidate?
I don't know what he's doing, if he's fooling himself or not. I'm just saying that at some point you have to start winning primaries. Whether it's the first 1, 2, 3, you have to win some early primaries because, quite frankly, those of you in this room will start determining, oh, this guy's not viable. He hadn't won anything yet.
Governor, during your speech you talked about...
Governor, why are you declining to criticize some pretty late remarks? I mean,
I didn't in any way support them, and I haven't declined to criticize them. I just don't want to spend all my... I'm running for president. I'm not running for the social media critic for somebody else who's running for president. You guys can ask him all day. Talk to me about issues. Talk to me about my tax plan. Talk to me about what I believe about the Iranian deal. I'm running for president not to evaluate one of the other 16 people or 323 people running for president. So there's plenty of people who can talk about Donald Trump. I'm the only person who can talk about what Mike Huckabee is doing running for president.
Let's talk about those issues. You talk about the IRS on stage. You talk about the Iran deal. You've recently resorted to some, you saved the IRS as a criminal enterprise.
Yeah.
You've used some sort of very descriptive language to describe the Iran deal. You said earlier that the voters were angry and that might have contributed to the rise of Donald Trump. Are you trying to sort of cater to that anger as well to bring those voters to your campaign?
No, I'm not trying to cater to anger. I am angry. I'm angry because this country has screwed over a lot of people, like the people I talked about today, like the guy named Mark in Aiken, South Carolina, like people that I meet every day on the campaign trail who are working just crappy jobs that pay them nothing. I'm angry that 90% of the workforce in America has had stagnant wages for 40 years. I'm angry that we continue to ignore real festering problems in this country and that working class people are taken in the gut. And that the only people who seem to be doing better are the people at the very top. And we're not fighting for those folks out there. We're not going to win as a party. Let me just be blunt. We're not going to win as a party if we don't start speaking for and to the problems that are being faced by the great majority of the people of this country. And so the anger is not limited to one segment. I'm as angry as anybody about it.
And so when there are candidates who say that the party can't be angry, and the party has to bring people together, you think actually that voters want somebody who can express their frustration with the way things are?
Look, I haven't lost my sense of humor. A lot of things to me are still funny, and I don't lose my perspective of life. Some things are funny, and I want to make sure that I don't lose that balance. But some things aren't funny. It isn't funny that a single mom is barely making it, and that we have trapped her in a cycle of welfare dependency. It's not that she wants to be there. I grew up poor. I get so mad when I hear people say, well, people are poor because they want to be poor. That's spoken by an idiot who's never been poor. That's a complete ridiculous statement. People aren't poor because they want to be poor. For God's sake, people don't want to be poor. They don't want to be in the hole. But if the government policies keep them in the hole and never let them out, because if they get to that threshold where they would be able to start earning some money, but putting anything above that threshold means they lose all the help that they were getting for their children to have some form of health care, some groceries on the table, a little help to pay the roof over their head, and you go from being able to survive to being in real desperate poverty because you went to work, then something is wrong with the government system that punishes them for wanting to get out of the hole. And yes, at that point, people will start saying, would you just make the hole nicer because it looks like I'm stuck here? But we've got to change the whole mindset so that we give people the incentive and the opportunity to get out of the hole. And our current policies don't. When we reformed welfare back in the 90s when I was governor, and governors all over America were forced to do this and wanted to do this, we didn't just throw people off welfare. Liberals thought that's what was going to happen. That's not what happened. We took people from welfare to work because we realized that welfare just in itself was a trap unless you gave people the opportunity to keep the benefits as they earn their way out of the hole. That's how we structured it, and that's why in my state, half the people on welfare ended up with jobs instead of being on welfare. And they were better off, not worse off. And we created the kind of safety nets that made it possible for them to transition into the workforce. We're not doing that enough. And until we do, I just feel like that sometimes we're missing the point that we're making it like there's one side over here for poor people, one side over here that doesn't care about them. There's some of us that care about them a lot because we know who they are. We came from them. And as a result of that, we want to make sure that when people are starting to move out of poverty, they can actually put their feet on the next rung on the ladder and climb out of that hole and one day live where they want to live, put their kids in the schools they want to put their kids into, put the kind of food on the table that they want to put on the table, and live the American dream.
Governor, I do want to ask you a question about your speech. I have a question about the speech.
Governor, can you flesh out a little bit practically what it would look like for presidents to invoke the 5th and 14th Amendment on abortion? And you're talking executive orders and then using the Justice Department to, go after clinics and providers or hospitals. Like, talk about beyond just the rhetorical act. Talk about what that would look like leaving it on the ground out in a country where abortion now is.
I think the key thing, a lot of people think it's about what are you going to do, to enforce. What you're going to do is you're going to actually start protecting those people who are the unborn. Now, it's not to criminalize the people, and certainly not mothers, my gosh. Nobody is suggesting that. Nobody that I know, and I'm certainly not.
How do you actually stop the abortions from occurring?
Well, you make it a part of a federal policy that you protect unborn children. And, there are a number of ways to do it. A lot of the details I will reveal at the time that I get to be president. You'll see. I'm not trying to be coy, but I don't want to get stuck in the weeds. I just want to say that the big picture here is that the Fifth Amendment protects people. The issue before America is that unborn child a person or not? Let's settle that. Once we settle that, we can take care of a lot of things. And I think that's where we've missed the focus. We focused on procedures. We focused on funding. Those are the side issues. The issue, do we believe that that is a person? If it is, everything changes. And that's why I want to keep the focus on the big picture.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Sam.